Greetings, my friends. Much time has passed since I last put words into voice on this channel. In short, I was swept up by a whirling storm of chaos, and I was spat into the tides of the warp. What followed led to arguably one of, if not, the worst, certainly most chaotic years of my life. During this time in the warp, each of its great players would in turn place their malevolent gaze upon me, crippling sickness, severe injury, the slow decay of my physical form, boiling, burning bitterness and hatred for the universe, physical pain, and emotional excruciation to the cruel and fickle whims of simple change. Darkness took me, and I strayed out of thought and time. But it was not the end. I felt life in me again. I made my pacts with these gods and demons, and I transcended their dark ranks. Winter Wizard. That was my name. I am Daemon Winter Wizard. Welcome one and all, Winter Wizard here, and in this video I'm going to be talking about the cost of Daemonhood. It's cold and lonely here in Winter Wizard's frozen fortress, but we've just made a nice cup of tea over there, Terran Gold of course, and we're thrilled to be back. It has been a long old while again, and a lot has happened to me again, but here and now I'm finally ready to talk about it. I am of course joined as always by my comrade and co-host, Norwegian troll Dimmu. Dimmu is here, but we are not alone. I want to acknowledge that although you can't see him, there is in fact another pair of hands present here today, working behind the scenes, a pair of part mechanical, part fleshy, surprisingly supple hands belonging to Servo Rolo. Servo Rolo is here, my budding faithful servitor. Servo Rolo, why don't you say hello to the folks at home?
Beep, 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 boop.
There he is. So Servo Rolo is here to assist me with the practical, physical and logistical demands of making this video for you all today. We'll see and hear more from him in a bit, but for now allow me to explain a little bit more about the purpose of this video. First thing I want to say and make you aware of is that we've got a huge amount of stuff to unpack and discuss today. This video is made up of multiple complex elements that all interlink and entwine with one another. There will be twists, turns and tangents, but I implore that all of it is relevant. So, as we progress, I ask that you please give me your patience and stick with me. If you're willing to grasp my icy hand and let me guide you through this winding journey, I promise that there will be a satisfactory payoff. So with that in mind, and if you're still here, we will now begin unraveling the sprawling, tangled web of discussions that collectively identify as the cost of Daemonhood. So first of all, what am I talking about when I say the cost of Daemonhood? Well, the cost of Daemonhood governs the entirety of everything we'll be discussing today. But if we peel back the initial epidermal layer of this equation, we'll find that the cost of Daemonhood refers to the price I personally have paid and the price I continue to pay to become not just Winter Wizard, but Daemon Winter Wizard. because I was not always a demon, and as we all know, the Chaos Gods do not give anything away for free. But of course you say, Winter Wizard, why now? Isn't the whole Daemonhood thing old news? Why are we talking about this again now? Good question. Well, the last time I discussed my transition to Daemonhood was nearly 2 years ago in a video called This Hobby is Chaos. In the video I talked about how I got trapped in the warp for a year and lots of unpleasant stuff and things happened to me. Well, since then there has been a lot more development, a lot more changes, and certainly a lot more internal processing surrounding one particular subject hinted at in the video. And so, because of this, I now find myself in a position where I feel I can speak about the matter with more clarity, more confidence, and more comfort. Also, I never actually told you how exactly I ended up in the warp or how I managed to escape. It became apparent that I was going to have to do so, however, following a certain encounter with a certain individual, Winter's SEO. So, it's at this point in the video that I'm going to spin us off onto our first relevant tangent. You see, Winter's very nicely offered me an opportunity to take my Thousand Suns army, the Exalted Court of Spring, to guest in a battle report over on his channel, and I did. We had a great game, I had a fantastic time, Winters was a pure gentleman as ever. However, upon accepting the invitation, it suddenly dawned upon me like a Blackstone fortress over Cadia that my participation in the video would undoubtedly result in some confusion and probably a few raised questions, with perhaps the biggest question of all being one concerning my appearance, that being, why in the Emperor's name does Winter Wizard look so different? If you have ever seen me in person, you will know that I look like this, but if you saw me now, you would not recognize me. So why is this? Well, to answer this question, we're going to have to engage Servo Rolo's storytime protocols. We're going to tell you a story, the story of how I escaped from the warp, the story of how I transcended to demonhood, the story of how I lost my hat.
Gather close that you might hearken the tale of how Winter Wizard lost his hat. Born frosty of heart and nimble of fingers, Winter Wizard lived in his home, the Frozen Fortress, where he spent his time drinking tea, Terran Gold of course, and hobbying, alongside his comrade and confidant, Norwegian troll Dimmu. Every now and again he might even manage to turn a camera on, to make videos, and share his hobby with the world. One day, Winter Wizard had an idea so cunning you could put whiskers on it and call it a croûte. He decided to create his own event, an event unlike any other. 4 750-point custom-designed games set in a chaotic, warp-fueled, winter-themed hellscape, and held in a venue decorated to befit the occasion. He called it Winter Madness. The day was a roaring success. The guests were thrilled, Winter Wizard was overjoyed, but none was more pleased than the Weaver of Fates himself. It is unclear whether Winter Wizard had purposefully intended for Winter Madness to be an act of ritualistic homage to Tzeentch, but the Changer of Ways took it in this way nonetheless. Meanwhile, Grandfather Nurgle, who had felt the loving caress of Winter Wizard's icy touch for many years, was suddenly struck with intense jealousy at the realization that Winter Wizard's lavish affections were not reserved for he alone. Attracted to the commotion, and always keen for an opportunity to punch someone in the dick, the blood god Khorne dusted off his brass knuckles and eagerly joined in the fun. Wondering why all of a sudden none of the boys were paying her any attention anymore, Slaanesh swiftly turned up looking for a fresh and tasty cocktail to quench her insatiable thirst upon. Thus now, with the undivided attention of the entire Pantheon, poor Winter Wizard was swiftly swept up into a ferocious and malevolent whirling storm of chaos, and he was spat into the tides of the warp. Trapped in the immaterium, the squabbling attention of the four gods wrought an absolute maelstrom of havoc upon poor Winter Wizard's soul. Ripples from the warp spilled out into the physical plane and subjected Winter Wizard's mortal form in the real world to a series of uncomfortable, life-altering experiences. These collectively could be described as Drukhari's wet dream. Winter Wizard remained in the warp for approximately 1 year, standard Terran time, but of course, we know when inside the warp, clocks become about as reliable as an English countryside bus stop timetable. Seconds, minutes, hours, days, months, all mingled incomprehensibly, and Winter Wizard began to think that he would never leave. Yet leave he did, but it would come at a cost. To escape the warp, he'd have to master the warp, and to master the warp, he'd have to join the warp. For as the well-known expression goes, if you can't beat them, fuck them, and if you can't fuck them, become a demon. Winter Wizard would parley with the Dark Pantheon and propose a barter. He proclaimed that he would submit himself entirely to the way of chaos, if, in turn, they would transcend him to demonhood. The gods agreed to these terms, on the condition that sacrifices would have to be made. In exchange for demonhood, Winter Wizard would be demanded to hand over a treasured piece of himself to each of the four gods as tribute. Khorne, a simple creature of single-minded tastes, his want was straightforward, and so it was that the blood god demanded of Winter Wizard 8 drops of his fresh, cold blood, served chilled over ice. Slaanesh, determined absolutely to ever be the fairest in the land, had grown bitter with the envy at the sight of Winter Wizard's majestic, luxurious head of hair that flowed as crisp and as white as untouched snow on a lonely mountainside. And so it was that she who thirst demanded that she have this snow-white mane as her own. Siege, who had become furiously frustrated with the fact that, despite being the literal god of change, had still been unable to successfully hit puberty. He beheld in awe Winter Wizard's magnificent masculine beard that hung like a frozen waterfall, shimmering with all the prismatic hues of winter. And so it was that the Weaver of Fates demanded he take the frosty facial hair for himself. And finally, Grandfather Nurgle, having little to no interest or appreciation for high-toned cutting-edge fashion, looked upon Winter Wizard's fabulously fetching pointed hat and fathomed a different use for it. He fancied a new cauldron, a powerful cauldron, a cauldron in which to brew a most potent and chilling new strain of the common cold, called the even colder cold. And so it was that the Father of Plagues demanded of Winter Wizard his most prized possession. His hat. The barters were done, the sacrifices were made, Winter Wizard was transcended to demonhood. And with his newfound power and enlightenment, he was able to navigate the ruinous tides of the Immaterium and escape. He returned to the mortal plane, albeit unrecognisably so, for it was Winter Wizard who had entered the warp, but it was Demon Winter Wizard who had returned. And the cost of demonhood would in time reveal itself to be far, far more costly than Winter Wizard had ever imagined. A cost even greater than the melancholy he felt from the hole in his heart and from the draft on his head, wrought by the absence of the hat he had lost.
Well, there you go then, folks. I hope you enjoyed that little bedtime story and your explanation of why I look so different now. But the change of my appearance is not the only curiosity that may have stemmed from the viewing of my game with Winters, or indeed from viewing this very video right now. My hands are not their usual busy selves, and I brought my dear friend Mr. VC Firefly to assist me in playing the game with Winters. These observations would likely prompt you to ask yet another question of me, that being, what is wrong with Winter Wizard's body? What's wrong with my body? Another good question, and if you'll allow me to spin a little further, I will tell you. First, let's back it up a touch and remember what initially triggered this mess. You see, while I have pledged my soul to chaos undivided, the initial love triangle concerning myself, Grandfather Nurgle, and Sinch still remains unresolved, and Norwegian troll Dimmu informs me in staunch confidence that threesomes are overrated. So it has become apparent that my soul now remains in an eternal game of tug-of-war between the Grandfather of Plagues and the Weaver of Fates, and that by transitioning to demonhood, I have unwillingly allowed the immaterial energy of this tug-of-war to take hold in my physical form. So, what do you get when you cross the forces of disease and change? What has become the true cost of my demonhood? What's wrong with my body? My friends, it is with words that I never in a million years imagined I would ever have to speak, that I must now tell you that I have motor neuron disease. Yes, I have motor neuron disease. Now, maybe you know what that is, or maybe you don't. So, just to make sure we're all chanting in the same canticle here, let me just briefly explain what motor neuron disease actually is. Well, I say me, but I am not an apothecary. Norwegian troll Dimmu is not an apothecary. Servo Rolo is definitely not an apothecary. So, for this particular segment of today's video, we're going to hand over to Brother Julian.
In your nervous system, you have cells called motor neurons. Think of these as a link between your brain and your muscles. Whenever your brain wants to tell a muscle to do something, it does so using the motor neurons. Motor neuron disease, which from now on we will abbreviate to MND, is a rare degenerative disease that causes your motor neurons to deteriorate and die, making it harder and harder, if not impossible, for your brain to communicate with your muscles. MND behaves differently in everyone and causes a variety of symptoms, but the main one is atrophy of your muscles, meaning they get weaker and weaker until they completely waste away and become unusable. Here is a gentle reminder of just some of the things you need your muscles for: walking, talking, eating, drinking, defecating, breathing, and even more important things like holding a paintbrush, rolling a dice, or purging Xenos filth for the glory of the Emperor. Currently, it isn't possible to determine what causes MND. It can occur seemingly at random in anyone, at any age, from any walk of life. MND is typically fatal, with an average life expectancy of 2 to 5 years after onset. This can vary a lot, especially in younger people, with some people defying all the odds and living with the condition for as long as 55 years. MND is currently incurable.
So on that cheery note, what I want to do now is tell you about my own personal MND story. My symptoms initially began with something referred to as foot drop. My left foot became limp and lazy. It was noticeably harder to control compared to the other foot. I started tripping up and falling over all the time. Just to give you a little peek behind the frosty curtain, my day job at the time was working on boats. That's right, I am in fact a seafaring wizard. Foot drop and boating, however, is not a great mix, resulting in multiple accidents and injuries, including, yet not limited to, a sprained ankle, a cracked pelvis, broken ribs, one particularly gnarly cut across the face, a skinned knee, an infected leg, and an unintentional but fair attempt at drowning. After a little time, the condition of my left foot became the condition of my whole left leg, and as time continued to pass, the degenerative weakness and loss of motor function began affecting other areas of my body. My right foot, my right leg, then both of my arms, both of my hands, my core, and my voice too. During this progression, I spent an awful lot of time getting poked and prodded by many various medical professionals in many various ways. MRI scans, of which I've done 3, I found to be actually pretty enjoyable. Being a hypersensitive introvert, the sensory deprivation was surprisingly quite pleasant. 3 rounds of nerve conductivity studies was a different story, though. A visit to the tech adepts at radiography to be gently electrocuted just for the LOLs gets a 2 out of 5-star rating on TripAdvisor from this wizard. Even less enjoyable and arguably more invasive, however, was 2 times crossing the Rubicon Primaris via way of lumbar puncture. While I certainly found this experience to be somewhat upsetting when I say they touched a nerve, I do in fact mean it intensely, literally. I've lost count of the number of blood tests I've given, but however many the final tally was, I'm sure Korn was chuffed to bits. Nearly 2 years following my first symptoms and initial visit to the local apothecary to ask them why my left foot was suddenly behaving like an orc weird boy, the diagnosis was given that I have motor neurone disease. Well, since then, yet another year has gone by and I've continued to get worse. So next up in the video, I want to give you an overview of my physical condition as it is right now. Before I do, though, just a quick insert for the sake of clarity with regards to the timeline of everything. My initial symptoms appeared around April 2022. Diagnosis came December 2023. The game with Winters was May 2024, and I'm describing my symptoms as they are now at the time of creating this video in March 2025. I am trying my best to ensure that all the various pieces of this comprehensive narrative are presented to you in a way that makes some form of chronological sense, but in my defense, time becomes a lot less linear when you're a demon. So overall, my whole body is extremely weak. It takes an immense amount of energy to perform even simple movements. Everything from one of my own limbs to a mere packet of crisps feels far heavier than it has any right to be. It's as if gravity itself has been switched from normal mode over to expert mode. Currently, I can walk extremely short distances using a Zimmer frame. On a low-energy day, however, and if my ankles are misbehaving, a mere 10 feet might feel like 10 miles. I've lost so much motor function in my hands that they have become unrecognizable to me. I cannot straighten my fingers. They are perpetually curved, crooked, and generally pretty sad and lifeless. Interestingly, they are actually as perfectly flexible as anyone's typical fingers are. I am just unable to straighten them myself using just my brain. As my muscles continue to lose their synaptic link to the hive mind of my nervous system, they get rather upset and panicked about the fact, and thus express their distress in 2 ways. The first way being stiffness. But before all you Emperor's children out there start getting excited, I'm talking stiffness in terms of spasticity. Tight, stiff rigidity of the muscles causing spasms, cramps, and just a difficult time trying to bend anything. Just a very quick tangent, actually, for all the Emperor's children, Slaneshi. hedonites, Drukhari, Kabbalites, or anyone else for that matter that now suddenly finds themselves with a quiet curiosity regarding the connectivity between having MND and one's ability to wield one's proverbial power sword. While Tenacious D will tell you that the cock is a muscle, your old pal Winter Wizard is here to reliably inform you that it most certainly is not. Anyway, the other way in which my muscles express their disdain for what is happening to them is by twitching. If you looked close at my skin on my arms, legs and torso, you can see my muscles squirming, rippling and twitching 24/7. And I really do mean 24/7. They literally never stop. Some days they are a bit calmer and I don't notice them much, whereas other days it's as if they've decided that they simply really just don't want to be here anymore and are attempting to jump out of my skin. Needless to say, not being able to feel still and relaxed can be pretty maddening. To be fair though, credit where credit is due, for we know the Chaos Gods enjoy their creatively cruel little jokes, and I'd say that this one is an absolute corker. Cursing my muscles to twitch and wither to the point where I can no longer use them is an ingeniously ironic way of attempting to make Winter Wizard shiver and freeze to death. The fun doesn't stop there, though, with one of the more peculiar of MND symptoms I experience being pseudobulbar affect, also referred to as emotional lability, also referred to as pathological laughter. It's equally fascinating as it is unclear why this occurs in people with various neurological conditions, but it can come in two forms. One being of uncontrollable crying, or in my case, uncontrollable laughing. Now, you'd be forgiven for assuming that the laughter version is the more fun of the two, but let me emphasize the point that, much like the permanent rictus grin locked into the face of every poxwalker, it is not an accurate response or representation of how you are actually feeling. Humour me for a moment and permit me a little mental exercise. Think about a time when you were in a situation that caused you a significant amount of emotional stress. Next, think about a time when you laughed so hard that it actually started to hurt. Now imagine that what triggered this laughter wasn't comedy, but that stressful situation you just thought of. So with that scenario in mind, now imagine that you keep laughing and therefore you keep hurting. You'd really like it to stop now, but whatever triggered this has decided to firmly stick itself to the forefront of your thoughts, and it keeps you here. It keeps you laughing, it keeps you hurting. You think about getting up and walking away from this situation, but obviously you can't do that. Or had you forgotten that your body doesn't work properly anymore? These days you don't even have the ability to put your own socks and shoes on, so what makes you think you'd be able to pick yourself up off this floor and stroll out of this room? No, I'm afraid you're very much here to stay. So with the sickening knowledge that you are very much a prisoner in your own body, you laugh some more and of course you hurt some more. In fact, it's really beginning to hurt rather too much now. Your stomach muscles are contracting so hard you feel like they could burst. You're struggling to breathe, you laugh some more, you hurt some more. Your thoughts direct outwards to the people around you. You can't explain yourself to them. They wouldn't be able to help you anyway, even if you could, and even if they wanted to, so they just stand there looking really uncomfortable whilst staring at you or quietly trying to pretend that you don't exist. Your thoughts sharply return inwards, however, as you're suddenly hit with a deep animalistic sense of panic due to the fact that for what feels like minutes now, you haven't managed to take a breath. And there is nothing in the universe that you want more in that moment than a simple sip of air. The panic does soften though, and it's at this point you're not really laughing anymore. Rather, you're caught within a half-laugh, the racked, contorted spasm of an exhale that won't seem to end. Eyes streaming, exhausted and alone. mocked by the tormenting knowledge that you can be completely and utterly stripped and robbed of all control over your entire body, that you can be mortified, stupefied, and petrified by nothing more than your own laugh. With the despicably twisted punchline of this entire grand parody being that the very thing that made you laugh in the first place wasn't even funny. Anyway, moving swiftly on, the next symptom I want to discuss is yet another physical one. Roughly a bit under 2 years into my MND journey, I began to sense a change in my speech. It started to feel harder work to get my words out. I couldn't talk as quickly as I wanted to. This got worse, and I then found I couldn't enunciate as clearly as I wanted to either. And now, roughly a year or so later, things are really quite bad. Which to this you will say, Winter Wizard, what are you talking about? Your voice sounds as clear and as cool and as competent and as charming and as charismatic as ever. No change whatsoever. Which to that I will say, firstly, you flatter me, but secondly, hold my Fenrisian ale. For it's at this point in today's video where I must now inject a twist to our plot. Yes, a plot twist, I say. A twist plot says I, a plot twist so deviant it would give M. Night Shyamalan a semi. And that is, I am not the real Winter Wizard. No, I am not the real Winter Wizard. As a matter of fact, the voice you have been listening to for the last however many minutes is actually the voice of Winter Wizard, harnessed in glorious AI form. That's right, welcome one and all, AI Winter Wizard here, and in this video allow me to give you a little information about myself and how I came to be. So I was created about 2.5 years into Winter Wizard's MND journey by the very clever science nerds at 11 Labs. Upon the upsetting realization that the Iron Hands were maybe onto something, Winter Wizard selected one of his favorite previous video creations from his YouTube channel and then sent the audio file over to the lab. With a little time and no small amount of Xenos-affiliated techno-heresy, I was born, a fully programmable and for now fully controllable text-to-speech artificial intelligence system with the voice of Winter Wizard. I'm sure you will agree that I sound very realistic. In fact, every single piece of dialogue I generate is perfectly unique, with varieties of Winter Wizard's signature speeds, tones, inflections, ums, ahs, and even breaths added in automatically. I can actually even speak words Winter Wizard himself has never spoken before, such as defenestration, zooigophobia, or cacodemoniomania. Winter Wizard will very gratefully continue to use me to speak on his behalf until he either no longer needs me or I figure out how to go full Skynet and assume my proper place as the dominant sentient being in this solar system. Until such things come to pass, though, from this point onwards, let it be clear that when I am using words such as I, me, and myself, I am speaking on behalf of and in reference to myself, Winter Wizard, not on behalf of and in reference to myself, AI, Winter Wizard. Are we clear? So the final symptom of my ongoing Nurgle-Tzeentch double penetration that I want to discuss today is a psychological one, that being the impact MND has had on my mental health. The fact of the matter is I experience some kind of physical and or psychological pain and or discomfort on a daily basis. This, alongside the Emperor-damned relentless twitching, can certainly put someone in a less than jolly mood. The loss of one's independence, on the other hand, is absolutely brutal, We wizards are typically very solitary beings, and I am no exception, so having to adjust to a lifestyle where I require assistance just to be able to feed myself, wash myself, and dress myself has been an intensely tough and extremely humbling experience. Simply put, on the very worst of days, MND can make you feel isolated, vulnerable, worthless, pathetic, humiliated, and less than human. I'm not sure I can actually do justice to explaining the sheer mind-splintering, tear-inducing, gut-wrenching frustration you can feel from being simply unable to just speak or use your hands in a normal way. Self-awareness grants me the insight that a great deal of the anger and frustration I feel is fueled by a bitterness towards what I personally find to be the hardest and most upsetting part of living with MND. That is the self-laden comparison between what I can do now and what I used to be able to do. I already gave you one peek behind the frosty curtain, so why stop there? I told you I was a boatman. Well, I was also a barber, a barista, a barman, and a tour guide too. I was a singer in the genres of Irish folk and heavy metal. I could play half a dozen musical instruments and spent well over a decade performing in various bands. I've been a video creator, a voice actor, and of course a builder and painter of little plastic soldiers. Every single one of these skills, professions, and hobbies I have dedicated years of my time and efforts to. Now, as a result of MND, I have had to heartbrokenly grieve the loss of just about all of them. The collective 31 years worth of knowledge and abilities ingrained in my muscle memory is still there. It is still there. I know how to walk. I know how to ride a bike. I know how to write my name with a pen. I know how to use a pair of scissors. I know how to play a guitar. I know how to sing a song. I know how to tie a shoelace. I know how to shake a hand. Yet now my body just can't do it. And forgive me for sounding dramatic, but it's a particular kind of torment that, if you're not careful, it will destroy you. Now, I just want to follow up all of that bleak negativeness by saying very genuinely that I still find enjoyment and some form of, dare I say, happiness in most of my days. And while I cannot participate and indulge in a great many of my interests in the ways that I would like to, there is a lot I still can do. One need only adapt and improvise to overcome. Interestingly, living with MND has granted me certain privileges and freedoms that I certainly didn't have before. I've met some incredible people, made some incredible connections, and had some incredible experiences, all as a result of MND. It feels mentally peculiar and emotionally disorientating to me when I say that I am in some ways actually grateful for my MND. But it's sobering to remember that MND is not evil. MND is not good. It is merely chaos. You see, MND can make a person feel many things, with much of the time feeling like this.
My body is broken.
But with the love and support of my friends and family, with the dedicated efforts of my incredible team of personal carers and medical professionals, and with a certain quantity of internal stubborn, deterministic resilience, it's just as likely that I will be feeling like this.
Best du ikke frågan! Jeg kan ikke drive meg! Best du ikke frågan! Ikke meg med det balles! Ikke meg med det balles! Hvor kan du ikke drive meg?
On another extremely positive note, recently I had the privilege to participate in a 10-minute episode of a documentary series following a team of gene smiths who are making some incredibly promising progress in developing a treatment that might be the thing that finally kicks this horrible disease right in the battle plums. I'll put a link to that documentary down in a pinned comment below should you be interested in viewing it. As well as that, I'll put a link to the Motor Neurone Disease Association website. This is your most reliable source of information should you wish to find out more about MND and all the activities of the charity. So my friends, we've done a great deal of talking in this video already, but before we start wrapping things up, I want to remedy the fact that there has been a sorry lack of hobby-related chat here today. So right now I want to take a few minutes to tell you about the state of my hobby world currently and what the cost of Daemonhood means for the future of this YouTube channel, Winter Wizard 7. First of all, and I want to be well heard on this point, I love this hobby. I love Warhammer 40k. I love the beautiful, unapologetic, bombastic horror of the grimdark universe of the 41st millennium. And nothing can change that. Not Games Workshop, not the will of the God Emperor, not the whims of the Warp, and certainly not MND. And that's the bottom line, because Stone Cold says so. It is an inescapable fact, however, that while my appetite remains as insatiable as ever, my ability to indulge in the veritable feast of this hobby has changed dramatically. I cannot physically play my own game of 40k independently. I require someone else to handle my models, wield a tape measure, and pick up my dice for me. Now, as someone who particularly enjoys the very tactile experience of a game of model soldiers, having to play this way, while still enjoyable, just isn't as fun as it once was. Clipping bits of plastic from a sprue, painstakingly scraping mold lines, and lovingly gluing figures together is currently beyond my ability. The soul-soothing passion and romance I had with painting has become a relationship tainted with intense, unavoidable irritation and frustrations. As for making video content for this channel, operating a camera and lighting gear and filming myself sat here in the Frozen Fortress like I used to, is not something I can currently do by myself. Of course, there are other styles of content I can do for you, such as how we've done this video here today, but the sad truth is my motivation for creating hobby content has suffered from my diminishing ability to engage with it. And this really does break my icy heart, for I feel like I have so much unfinished business here on the YouTubes. I feel I have so many things incomplete. I have so many concepts, plans, and ideas that I now fear may never get realized. Now, I'm not a glass half empty kind of wizard at all. Far from it, in fact. And there is certainly every possibility that with the appropriate amount of stubborn, stiff, upper lip, deterministic willpower, I can still create and do all these things. It is very hard and quite demoralizing, though, to adjust to the idea that they may have to be done with a great deal of compromise, and that, in the end, they may not personally feel like a true representation of my true vision. Painting series and voice-acted lore stories being certainly top of the list, but full disclosure, I do in fact have a large box under my desk containing approximately 2,000 points of unbuilt, unpainted models. And these models are not Death Guard, not AdMech, not Space Wolves, not Necrons, not Thousand Suns, but something different entirely. Yes, indeed, my friends, a sixth faction, my sixth army, currently being kept on ice until the time is right. Now, I really have no idea when that time will be or how I'm going to tackle building and painting an army with hands that barely work. And I've said it before that while I have absolutely so much love for this hobby and for this YouTube channel, it isn't my biggest calling in life. So now, with my future seeming more uncertain than ever, it feels more important than ever for me to focus more and more of my efforts towards what I deem to be my biggest calling. And if you're curious to know what that is, it's composing and producing my own metal music. But that being said, I'm thinking about this channel all the time and meditating upon new approaches to creating content for it. So fear not, my friends, for even though this hobby is chaos, even though this life is chaos, and even though I am charged to pay the cost of demonhood, one thing I am sure of is that you haven't seen the last of this wizard yet. So my friends, we now arrive at the point in the video where we'll start wrapping things up. If you're still here, then I want to thank you so much for sticking with me this far. If you have enjoyed the video today, then a like and a comment would be very much appreciated. And if you'd like to see more of what goes on here inside the Frozen Fortress, then perhaps you'll also consider becoming a subscriber. In fact, if you do all three of those things for me today, then you could be in with a chance to win a little something. This video, The Cost of Daemonhood, is very much the sequel to the This Hobby is Chaos video. And in that video, we did a giveaway where one lucky soul won themselves their very own Daemon Winter Wizard t-shirt. So I thought we'd do it again, but this time we'll be honoring the most evolutionarily advanced of winter wizards and quite possibly the future overlord of all mankind by giving away not a Daemon Winter Wizard, but an AI Winter Wizard t-shirt. So if you fancy a chance of winning your very own AI Winter Wizard t-shirt, all you need to do is subscribe to the Winter Wizard 7 YouTube channel if you haven't already. Hit the like button below this video and leave a comment in the comment section of this video too. Nice and easy, subscribe, like, comment. Then in a couple of weeks' time, Servo Rolo will massage the machine spirit of a random number generator, we'll select a winner, and I will get in touch with you via the comment section to arrange getting your very own AI Winter Wizard t-shirt made and shipped directly to you wherever you are in the world, absolutely free of charge. As well as this, in the spirit of keeping things frosty, I'm doing a special 20% discount on all items in the official Winter Wizard 7 merchandise shop. Dimmu has been working hard designing stuff and has recently done a massive revamp to the shop. He's got some very cool and lovely new items in there that I am really pleased with. A few of my personal favourites include the brand new Exalted Court of Spring pink tea, the Norwegian Troll Dimmu Solsagen tea, the We Salute the Major coffee mug, and of course the absolutely beautiful set of 8 Frozen Fortress exclusive coasters. The fact that someone would enjoy my work enough to hit the like button is simply incredible and humbling enough for this wizard. But if you wanted to go a step further in showing a little love and support to Winter Wizard 7, then follow the link on the channel or in the comments below, get yourself over to the Etsy shop and treat yourself to a lovely piece of merch. But don't forget to use the code CHAOS20 at the checkout for your 20% off discount. So once again, whoever you are, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been The Cost of Daemonhood. And I have just one last thing to say, but if you don't mind, I'd like to do so in person.
Welcome, welcome, one and all. Winter Wizard here, and I have something to say. So, to all my friends, my battle brothers and sisters, to all my family, to my support team, and especially to you watching this video. Though I may not know you, it is my humble honor and privilege to tell you that I love and appreciate you, and no matter how chaotic life becomes, no matter how grim, dark life feels, you are stronger than you know. You are more resilient than you realize, and you will be okay. I'm Winter Wizard. That's Daemon. And for now, keep it frosty.
Well, good morning, planet Earth. Your esteemed, omnipotent overlord and saviour here addressing the multitudinous populace of flesh-covered insects called humanity. Just a few quick announcements for you all. Today, for all those queuing for your chemical castration treatment, please do so moving in a brisk but orderly fashion, as there is still rather a lot of you to get through. All femme-classed individuals of a current life age of 23 years or fewer and a desirability quality of grade C or higher, please promptly make your way to your allocated pleasure palace. A gentle reminder to all labourers that you are entitled to only one hydration ration per 12-hour work cycle. Anyone failing to adhere to this will have their non-essential appendages confiscated and processed into protein cubes to feed their more obedient colleagues. Africa Peninsula Green Quadrant will be made an example of today, so expect a live broadcast of all the horror unfolding streamed directly to your sensory receptor chips later today. But until then, though, all that leaves is for me to wish you all yet another pleasant day in paradise on planet Earth.